Story Corner, presented by Jennifer. Thoroughbred, Book 1, A Horse Called Wonder, Chapter 11. Report cards that day. I only got 2 C's and a C minus and a great big D in math. Ashleigh didn't add that there was also a handwritten note from her math teacher saying she would fail if her work didn't improve drastically. It's the worst report card I've ever had. Do you really think they'll yell? Linda asked sympathetically. I hardly ever get B's and my parents don't get upset. But you don't get D's either. No, Linda agreed. Thankfully, Caroline wasn't on the bus. Ashleigh knew her sister would ask about her report card and want to see it. It was one thing telling Linda about it, but she didn't want Caroline to know. When Ashleigh got home, she quickly changed, hid the disgusting piece of paper in the bottom of her drawer, and went out to the weanling barn. It was a cold day for late October, and most of the horses were inside. She hurried to Wonder's stall. The filly gave Ashleigh her usual cheerful greeting, but Ashleigh could only sigh unhappily in answer. It's not a good day, Wonder. My report card's so bad, I'm afraid to show it to my parents. What am I going to do? I know they'll tell me I can't spend as much time with you. Boy, do I wish I studied harder. Wonder turned her head and nickered. Yeah, I'm in a mess, all right. Maybe Mom and Dad forget the report cards are due. Ashleigh knew that wasn't likely. Not when Caroline and Rory would be bringing home report cards, too. She was still debating what to do when Caroline came into the barn. So, how was your report card, Ash? Never mind. Not good, huh? Oh, go away. And how do you know? Well, you hardly spend any time on your homework. You're always out here. And I saw your grades on some of your math papers. You weren't going to show Mom and Dad your report card, were you? Yes, I was, Ashleigh growled. I just didn't feel like doing it now. Tell you what, if you switch off some babysitting days with me, I'll tell Mom and Dad I'll tutor you in math. Maybe they won't be so angry then. You don't even pay me when I watch Rory for you. Why should I? My tutoring's worth something. Ashleigh glared at her sister. I'll see. Just before dinner, Ashleigh talked with her parents. You're not going to like this, she said as she handed over her grades. Ashleigh, her mother exclaimed, this is the worst you've ever done. Nearly failing math? Why didn't you tell us you were having trouble? I didn't think my grades were so bad. I'll study harder, I promise. Her father scowled. I wonder if you're stretching yourself too thin. The only solution is for you to spend less time out in the barn. I'll get April to take over grooming Holly and Wonder, and no more rides on Dominator until you bring your grades up, especially math. And I want your homework done as soon as you get home from school. No going outside or hanging around in the paddocks until I've checked it over." "Oh, Dad, please, not Wonder too," Ashleigh cried. Both her mother and father remained firm. "School is important, Ashleigh," her mother said. "Right now, horses may be the only thing that interests you. But even if you end up having a career with horses, you need a good education. Your father and I wouldn't be able to manage a breeding stable without one." Ashleigh cringed. "I know, but it's been so difficult this year, trying to save Wonder." "Wonder's safety is past the stage where you have to worry about her survival," Mr. Griffin said. "But I'm so afraid she's going to be sold." We know you've gotten attached to her, but you have no control over whether she's sold or not. None of us do except Clay Townsend. In fact, maybe it's better if it's time you became a little less attached to Wonder. I want you to buckle down and improve your grades. Maybe Caroline can help you with your math, or you can come to your mother or me if you have any problems. In the meantime, I'll tell April to add Wonder and Holly to her list." Ashleigh felt stunned as she climbed the stairs. She couldn't believe her parents were doing this to her. She flung herself on the bed and buried her face in the pillow. She was furious with her parents and desperate beyond belief. She hadn't felt like this bad since they lost Eggendale. Sure, she should have spent more time on her homework, but did they have to take away Wonder? The worst part was her father saying she should become less attached to the filly. Had he given up hope that Wonder would stay on the farm? "You can't let that happen," Linda exclaimed the next day when Ashleigh told her about her parents' new rules. "It'll mess up everything." "I know," Ashleigh groaned. "I have an idea," Linda said. "I like math. How about if I help you during study halls? We can tell Mrs. Wilson what we're doing." "Would you? I'd rather have you helping me than Caroline, but I've got so much to catch up on." From then on, every afternoon, Ashleigh worked on her homework until her head ached. Linda's coaching in math helped, but Ashleigh knew she wasn't going to be able to bring her grades up overnight. She missed all the hours she spent in the barn. That's where she was the happiest. It was torture being stuck in the house during the few hours of winter daylight when she could have been with Wonder. Ashleigh had to tell Charlie what had happened since she couldn't ride Dominator anymore. She was embarrassed telling him that she'd let her grades slip so badly, that she was being punished, but he smiled sympathetically. "I was never crazy about school myself, but getting a good education is pretty important these days. More so than when I was a kid. You work at it. Old Dominator will still be around when you get your grades up, and April will take good care of the filly." "It won't be the same. Things don't always go the way you want, but you hang in there." At least Ashleigh could visit Wonder for a few minutes every night when her homework was done. April left her daily progress reports pinned to Wonder's stall door, since April was gone by the time Ashleigh could come out to the barn. April understood exactly how Ashleigh was feeling. If only Wonder could understand too. By early December, Ashleigh couldn't have felt much lower. The night air was cold, and there was a dusting of snow under Ashleigh's feet as she crossed the drive to the barn. Wonder whinnied with delight as soon as Ashleigh approached her stall, and Ashleigh hurried inside and threw her arms around the filly's neck. "You missed me as much as I missed you," Ashleigh said in a choked voice as Wonder nuzzled her hair. "You don't understand why I don't take care of you anymore, do you? I haven't deserted you, really. I'd rather be with you than stuck in the house, but there's nothing I can do about it now except keep studying. I still love you." The horse nudged her and grunted happily. Ashleigh laid her cheek against the soft warmth of Wonder's neck. At least the filly was still growing. That was one consolation. In another month, on January 1st, Wonder would officially be 1 year old, and she would begin looking like a full-grown horse. She still had a lot of growing to do, but Ashleigh had measured her the day before, and she now stood 14 hands at her shoulder, 56 inches. She was slowly catching up to the other weanlings, though Ashleigh knew too well that Wonder only had another month. Sometime in January, Mr. Townsend and Mr. Maddock would be inspecting the newly turned yearlings and making decisions about which would go to auction. The thought frightened her. She felt so helpless. "I know my next report card's going to be better, Wonder," she sighed, "and then I'll take care of you again. Just keep eating and growing. It's important, for both of us." Wonder bobbed her head, then touched her nose to Ashleigh's shoulder. "I want to take care of you always. I'll just die if they send you to auction. But it'll be okay. I know it will. And I'm thinking about you all the time, even if I'm not here." Wonder woofed as if she agreed. Yet, as soon as Ashleigh left the stall, Wonder hung her head and gave Ashleigh what seemed like an accusing stare. Ashleigh felt her heart was breaking. She felt even worse a few days later when she came to the stall and saw April's notes. "She's been off her feed. She's only eating half her rations. I wasn't sure whether to tell you or not, but I think she's not eating because she misses you. I'll tell your dad about it." Ashleigh crumpled the note in her hand and pressed her forehead miserably against Wonder's neck. This was exactly what she'd been afraid of. Here it was, nearly Christmas. She should be feeling happy and excited, not ready to cry. She tried to talk to her father about Wonder the next day, but he was busy with the sick mare and didn't seem concerned about Wonder. "Their appetites go up and down, Ashleigh. And with the lousy weather we've been having, she hasn't gotten much exercise. She'll be fine." Ashleigh was wakened by Rory's voice very early on Christmas morning. "Get up, Ashleigh, and see what Santa brought. There's a whole mess of presents." Ashleigh opened one eye and looked at her clock. "It's not even 7. What are you doing downstairs? You know Mom and Dad told you to wake them first." "I didn't open anything. I just looked. Come on, get up." "Go in and get Mom and Dad," she told him. "I'll get Caroline up." Within a few minutes, the whole family had gathered in the living room around the tree. "You think we should let Rory open his presents first?" his father teased, "or should we make him wait till last?" Rory gave his father a horrified look. "I'm only joking. Go on, you first." Rory scrambled over to the tree and tore into his pile of gifts. He opened them in record time. "Look, I got the truck I wanted, and a ninja set, and a baseball bat. Santa got me almost everything on my list," he cried. "I guess you must have been a pretty good boy this year." His mother smiled. "Who's next?" Caroline had been crawling over the tree and was already distributing the presents. "This one's for Ashleigh, one's for me, this is for Mom." Soon they all had a pile of presents in front of them. Most of Caroline's boxes contained clothing, and she was in ecstasy. When Ashleigh opened her own gifts, she found the two things she had wanted most: a new riding helmet and a pair of breeches. "Thank you," she cried. She ran to her parents and kissed them. She really hadn't expected that her parents would get her the riding gear she asked for. But when would she be able to use it? By the time they were done opening gifts, the living room was strewn with wrapping paper and ribbon. Ashleigh and Caroline cleaned up while Rory crawled around the room with his new truck, and their parents went out to the kitchen to make a big Christmas breakfast. Ashleigh still had Charlie's present to deliver, and she decided to do that after breakfast. The stable hands and riders who stayed on the farm for the holidays would be having a big Christmas dinner at the staff's quarters. Compliments of Mr. Townsend. Charlie didn't have any family, so Ashleigh knew he'd be around. She knocked on his door and heard him shuffling over. He seemed really surprised to see her. "Merry Christmas, Charlie," she smiled and handed him the brightly wrapped package. "For me? Now what did you go and do that for?" But the old man's face flushed with pleasure. "It's not much, but you've been so good to Wonder and helped me out in everything." "That's real nice of you. Just happens I found a little something around here with your name on it." Ashleigh was amazed. She hadn't expected anything from Charlie. He picked up a slender, tissue-wrapped package from the table near the door. "Thought you might like this. I don't have any use for it anymore." Ashleigh ripped away the tissue and discovered a jockey's whip. It was of beautiful tooled leather, and the initials CB were carved into the handle. She gasped with pleasure. "But this is yours. Guess I didn't tell you I used to be a jockey. A long time ago. That's how I got started. Thank you. I'll take good care of it. I know you will. And these handkerchiefs will come in handy too. On her way back to the house, Ashleigh stopped by the barn to visit Wonder. As she stepped inside, she saw Bill and Jessie and some other stable hands gathered in the barn's office. Well, if it isn't Miss Santa Claus, Jessie called out. Do I get a stocking too? The other hands in the office started chuckling. I'll leave her alone, Bill said. Who ever heard of giving a Christmas stocking to a horse? Like the horse is going to know what's going on. I think it's a real gorgeous thought. A real generous thought, Bill said. Where's your Christmas spirit? I usually save my presents for people, Jessie laughed. Ashleigh knew the teasing was in good fun. Yeah, Jessie, what's wrong with it? She called back. She's sure done a lot with that filly, one of the grooms added. But I'm not able to anymore, Ashleigh thought dimly, her smile fading as she walked down the barn aisle. She was sure Wonder was losing weight. The filly wasn't as perky or lively. As she heard and as hard as Ashleigh had been studying, she'd only managed to bring her math grade up to a C. Her parents told her that until she had gotten her grade up to at least a C+, she wouldn't be able to take over caring for Wonder again. On a cold Friday afternoon, right after New Year's, Ashleigh finished her homework faster than usual. It was still light when she left the house for the barn. As she came through the door, she stopped dead in her tracks. Mr. Townsend and Mr. Maddock were in one of the stalls, examining a yearling. The trainer had a clipboard in his hand and was busy making notes. Ashleigh suddenly felt cold all over. She knew what they were doing. They were deciding which of the just-turned yearlings would stay on the farm and which would go to auction. And she knew, too, that Wonder wasn't looking her best. The men moved on to another stall, and Ashleigh could hear their comments. Nice conformation, deep girth, well-angled pasterns. Let's hold on to this one. Ashleigh stood frozen in place, her heart pounding, as they worked their way down the barn towards Wonder's stall. 2 yearlings got rapes. Another 2 weren't so lucky. In both cases, Mr. Townsend said briskly, "Put this one down for auction." Then they went to Wonder's stall. As they'd done with the other yearlings, they felt Wonder's legs, ran their hands over her sides, checked her feet, and stood back, examining her from every angle. Wonder was nervous and unhappy with the 2 strangers. She shied and snorted and tried to kick out as Mr. Maddock held her halter. Ashleigh wanted to run down the barn aisle and calm her, but she knew she couldn't interfere, and Wonder's show of spirit might be for the best. We almost lost this filly as a foal, Mr. Townsend remarked. She was one of my biggest disappointments this year, considering her sire and dame. I had real high hopes for that match. He shook his head. She's got some good points. Nice straight legs and strong forearms. A well-sprung rib cage, like her sire. She might have some staying power with that lung capacity. She's immature, the trainer said. Not nearly enough growth. She might turn into something eventually, but could take a while. And would it be worth the wait? I seriously doubt she'll do any racing as a 2-year-old. I see her as a real risk. Ashleigh could hardly breathe. Her throat felt so tight from fear, and anger too, at Maddock's remarks. Mr. Townsend was thoughtful, still undecided. There's always the broodmare potential. Her dame's been a blue hen for me. That doesn't mean the filly's going to follow suit. Derek Griffen would tell you the same. You could chance it, but it'll cost you more to bring her along than sell her off as a yearling, especially if she turns out to be a dud. It's not worth it when you've got so many other outstanding yearlings. Mr. Townsend scowled. Then he gave a quick nod. Okay, let's put her down for the Kingling selected yearling auction. Let someone else take the chance on her. With her bloodlines, there ought to be a few takers. Mr. Maddock made some notes on his clipboard, and the 2 men started to leave the stall. Ashleigh didn't even think about what she was doing. She was furious. How could they decide Wonder's future so coldly? She raced down the barn to Wonder's stall and confronted the two men. "No," she cried. "You can't put her up for auction. You haven't given her a chance. You haven't seen how much she's improved. And she's got heart. She's going to be great. I know it. Please give her more time." Both men were astounded by Ashleigh's outbursts. She was too frightened about Wonder's future to think about her manners, or that she interfered in something that was none of her business. But it was her business when Wonder was involved. Mr. Townsend recovered first from his surprise. He looked down at Ashleigh's pleading face and suddenly seemed to remember who she was. "You're the Griffens' daughter, aren't you? You're the one who nursed this filly." Ashleigh nodded. He looked back to Wonder and frowned. "I have to say, the filly's done better than I expected." "She's doing better all the time, Mr. Townsend," Ashleigh pleaded. "It's just that she's had so much catching up to do, especially after she got the flu when she was a few weeks old. And I'll keep taking care of her. It won't cost you anything. I mean, except for feed." Mr. Townsend's lips twitched with a slight smile at Ashleigh's last words. Then he said, "So you think she's got heart?" "Yes, I'm positive." Mr. Maddock was shaking his head. "Filly's not worth taking the chance." Mr. Townsend took another look at Wonder. "This farm is a business, not a humane society." "I know," Ashleigh whispered. She closed her eyes for an instant, dreading what was coming next. "Still, I don't know that this filly had any racing potential. I still don't know that this filly has any racing potential," he said after a long silence. "But I'll admit, she's had a tough time of it. We'll give her another month. Let's see if you're right. Don't get your hopes up, though. If she doesn't look good then, she goes." Ashleigh was too relieved and grateful to think of the negative possibilities. All she could do was gasp. "Thank you, Mr. Townsend. You'll see a difference in a month. I know it." "I hope you're right." He motioned to the trainer, and the two men went on to the next stall. "I think you're making a mistake," Maddox said as they left. Townsend shrugged. "What's another month?"